WDIK listeners, we are back. Hope your summer break was fun filled. Mine was definitely fun. The family had a great summer together. This is another episode of What Do I Know with yours truly and only host, Orchestra. Before we jump into today's episode, firstly, I would like to say a big congratulations to my youngest sister as she became a Mrs. earlier this month. I wish you and your husband all the very best of marital bliss. I love you guys. Also, I want to say a big thanks, or should I say a big congratulations as well, to the Elysian Community Association North America, ICA, for a successful, a huge, and elite Ishambide 2024 celebration in the DMV area. It was lit, yo. It was late. We had a great time, and I look forward to another celebration in 2 years. This was the best one ever, definitely. NFL baby. All right. Here's something on this show that you completely disagree with, or maybe you have your own questions, you have comments, you have feedbacks for us on any episode or anything else at all. Feel free to email what do I know at orchestrashow.com or WDIK at orchestrashow.com. Thank you. Now, let's get into the show for today. Today, I'll be getting a little bit political on you all, right? As you know, this is a show where the average person's opinion truly matters. This is the show. Should I say this is a podcast for the rest of us? You may have gotten the perspective of the loudest voices in the room from Fox News, from MSNBC, from CNN, and other popular podcasts out there. Now, here is the voice of someone like you, the average person. So, except you've been living under a rock or life has had you by the balls, right? Or you just tune everything else out. That is the only way you will not know there's a major political wind blowing in this country and around the world. That's the only way you will not know. Okay. So yeah, there are people out there that have no clue. Sometimes when I come across people saying something huge happens, and then where everyone else around the world knew about it, except for these people, like how do you not know? Unless you are one of those people, you won't know about the political wind that is blowing around the world, especially here in the United States. Um, I once said and truly believe that democracy is on its final breaths around the world, and I truly mean that. Uh, we are slowly watching authoritarianism gradually take hold, not only in third world countries, but even in first world countries that are more developed and affluent, such as North America, Japan, and many more. Yeah. So this episode will focus on United States politics, and judging by the title, who Trump, of course. So we'll be talking a little bit about Trump, about the U.S. politics on today's episode. I'm going to take us a little bit back a few years. When I became a U.S. citizen and eventually a registered voter, cast my first vote for a Republican candidate 90% of the time. In the early summer of 2007, I began campaigning and fundraising for Barack Obama's campaign. And in 2008, I cast my first, Democratic vote during the primaries for a major candidate for Barack. Then again, during the general election in November of that year, 2008, I voted for a Democrat at the top of the ticket. But like I said, voted for Barack as the top of the ticket, but I've also voted for Republicans down the ballot because at that time a lot of the Republicans' idea and ideology greatly aligned with mine. I see a lot of myself in the ideas that are being put forward by the Republican at the time. Now, I'm an independent. If you don't know that by now, independent voter who was previously leaning towards the Republican Party ideologies, but now leaning towards the Democratic Party. The reason why I am an independent voter is because I don't trust both parties. They are both hypocrites. They complain about what the other side is doing wrong. Uh, when it's their turn, they do exactly the same, maybe even worse. So that's why I'm an independent. I can never see myself, unless things change, be a a firm member of any of the party that we have today. They sometimes, too often, they tend to put the party's interest above that of the nation. The nation should always come before the party. So let's fast forward to 2016. I was one of many who saw no or even imagine a future where Trump would have won that election. That night, I think I went to sleep around 1 or 2 a.m. and I just couldn't believe it. You know, I thought this man was just too damaged, morally bankrupt, and baggage saddle. He had way too much baggage. I didn't see people, or should I say, I didn't see millions of Americans voting for him. Knowing what we know now, even he didn't even think he would have won the he would have won the election. He wasn't prepared. His party was not prepared. His campaign was not prepared until that night when the votes started coming in. That they started running around to start preparing to take the White House. At first, I'm going to be sincere here. At first, I thought the election was rigged. I truly did at first. But then my experience volunteering to walk the polls on election days and that same election and previous election quickly reminded me how impossible that can be, or how difficult or extremely difficult it can be rig an election in the US. At least not that kind of massive rigging. That would be too big of rigging to go on, and people will not notice it, and raise raise the red flag to let other know that this election was rigged. But the man won the 2016 election fair and clear. He beat Hillary. The man wasted no time doing what he does best, which is sowing chaos and destructions. You know, inside those destruction came some positivity. Yeah, he did some things right. The man either knowingly or mistakenly got some things right. I'll give you some example of the things that I personally think he got right. One, his administration established the sixth branch of the U.S. Armed Forces, which we all call the Space Force. I'm not sure if that's the best name that we could have come up with, but it is what it is. Space Force, which is the newest military since the U.S. Air Force. I believe the Air Force was created back in 1947. I have a sister who was in the Air Force. Additionally, some might see this next one as a negative, but I think reshaping the federal judiciary is an accomplishment. The man appointed more than 220 judges, including three Supreme Court judges. That will leave a long impact in the US. Yeah, got it done. I think Barack may have actually did uh, less, a whole lot less than that in 8 years than compared to the appointments that Trump made in just 4 years. Additionally, he slashed the corporate tax to 21% from 35%. I believe that's the correct number there. Uh, Trump also signed the First Step Act into law to reform criminal justice. As many of us might disagree with him, he got it done. So We give him his flower on that. Trump also got rid of the ISIS leader, Abubakar al Baghdadi. He also killed, I think his name was Soleimani, the Iranian, one of the Iranian security officers, or I'm not sure exactly what his title was. But I personally think that was a mistake. I can certainly see, the need to get rid of al Baghdadi, but definitely not Soleimani. You know, um, although his initial response were horrible to the uh, you know, to the COVID pandemic, his administration facilitated the development of the COVID vaccine through the Operation Warp Speed, which was a record for development of a major vaccine. So, yeah, he got that done. It's a great thing. Additionally, his trade war with nations such as China and India, those nations were leveraging their status from when they were a third world nation. They are using all the benefits that they had during those times, using it today when they are no longer a third world country. They are using it to lower their manufacturing costs while they continue to keep wages lower and flood the market with low price items, which make it difficult for American manufacturers to compete. The trade war attempted to level the playing field. Trump succeeded in that area. That's just some of the things few or that I think we should get to on this episode. We cannot just talk about what he did right without talking about what he got wrong. Trump also got many things wrong, a whole lot, including his response to the world major and worst pandemic in modern history, the COVID-19 pandemic. He got the initial response wrong, and I think up to today there are some lies that he's still telling about it that I'm just like, dude, give it a rest. Also, he's the only American president to be impeached not once but twice. Unfortunately, he had the Senate was mostly Republican, so he never got convicted in Senate, but the House impeached him twice, and it goes into the record as the only and the first president that was ever impeached twice. This dude also got many other things wrong. Actually, he got so much wrong. Like my head is just filled. Like I can just keep coming up with a lot that the man got wrong. Um, his administration and just acts in a way that many Americans just keep scratching their head at how in the world did we let this happen, right? But it is what it is. The dude got so much wrong that it doesn't matter where you pick things up in his administration, and you will still end up with a boatload of shit that this dude just got wrong. Let me talk about a few right here, right? I'm going to start from the end, right? On January 6th, 2021, insurrectionists stormed the United States Capitol on Trump's encouragement. I don't care what anybody else said. People don't like to say the truth sometimes, or they don't want to appear to be partisan. Let's call it a spade, right? Trump encouraged the insurrectionists that stormed the U.S. Capitol. Period. Full stop. That's it. I never saw this coming. I know the man, can make some people feel like he's speaking for and to them while he's simply saying what he thinks that they want to hear. And to serve himself ultimately, the man is a transactional person through and through. If he's not getting something, he's not giving an inch. He's only, only looking out for number one, right? Another thing I think he also got wrong is coronavirus response devastated Americans. I think I mentioned that earlier. The man denied and denied the numbers that we were hearing and seeing daily, including the presence of the disease in America. At first, he refused to acknowledge that COVID was in America during the early stages. Well, if he had just responded swiftly and acted, proportionally to what was happening at the time, many lives, many lives would have been saved. Not just here in the US, but around the world as well. Additionally, under his order, the OSHA refused to set rules for worker safety during the pandemic. OSHA would have made rules that made employers to put employee safety first, right? But under Trump's administration, they did not do that. What they should have done is to make rules, put out requirements, you know, that would have saved many lives. Many workers died unnecessarily because many employers didn't have any reason to go above and beyond to protect human lives, since there was no government to make them, right. Another one, his administration set the record for ignoring Congress oversight. Though some of them came before Congress after several pulls and pushes, he made his appointee those that were serving in the acting capacity, which he loved. So many of them just ignore the Congress. Congress was not able to perform the checks and balances that were required for their branch. Trump's administration also shrank full SNAP, made it difficult for the SNAP program to function. Don't get me wrong, there are people on full SNAP that I think do not qualify or shouldn't even be on it. But his administration response to in attempt to fix some of the problem with the program end up defeating the purpose of the program. The changes that they made it difficult for many qualified applicants to leverage the program. So having all this requirement that they put in place, people that qualify could not even use the program because they have been disqualified by the new requirement that are put in place. Another problem that I see is continued denial of climate change, which encourage many in his administration to not only losing standards, but they also denied the existence of climate change that we are all seeing daily. They also roll back environmental regulations for some oil and gas companies. He also withdrew from the Paris Climate Agreement, and he also made attempts to end emission control for vehicles. I think the combination of all this that he has done, our children's future was further plunged into grave danger. More hurricanes, worst weather condition. It's what's ahead. This is all that we are creating if we don't pay attention to climate change now, which is exactly what Trump is doing. The man is actively denying climate change and doing things that will make the future severe for everyone. Although earlier on I cited his tax cut as a positive act, the opposite side of that cut is that the tax cut also fueled record deficit, and the cut didn't pay for itself as it promised. When you cut the budget somewhere and you don't reduce your spending, then you need to either create another source of income somewhere to fill the gap that the cut that you did is going to, but it failed to do that. It cut corporate tax from 35% to 21%, but then continued to spend more and then needed to spend way more due to COVID. So we end up with a worse deficit than he inherited when he got into office. Additionally, another problem that I think he created, as if legal migration was not hard enough, his administration limited those who are attempting to legally migrate to the United States as well. So not only was he going after illegal migrants, he was also making changes to make legal migration to the United States difficult. Their changes seems to target non-European nations, right? I personally have relatives whose 2008, 2009 immigrant visa application were greatly impacted. They are further delayed because of some of the changes that Trump and his administration put in place. Another thing, the man wasted millions of US dollars building walls. Much of the wall were easily ascended, or those that were crossing illegally, or they dug under those walls. Those migrants that are attempting to migrate to the United States illegally, I think some of the video that I saw, you have somebody climb up the wall and sent down a ladder for the rest of them to climb up on. So yeah, was a waste. There was no need to build that wall. The same wall that he told us that Mexico will pay for, which they never did. U.S. taxpayer end up paying for that wall. And don't even get me started on the scam that some of the people around him also perpetrated, trying to claim that they are raising money for the war while they are only enriching their own pockets. Well, I can keep going and going and going on some of the things that this man got wrong. But for me, I think the ultimate wrongdoing is his categorization of his opponent as enemies. Yes, the man sees other Americans that do not agree with him as enemies, and he called them out as that. I'm sure many of you will remember when the late John McCain immediately corrected a woman, I think it was also a guy, who called his opponent, Barack Obama, an Arab. And I think guy that also asked a question said he was afraid of Barack's presidency. Immediately, not later, not days later, not after people complained. McCain immediately called Barack a decent person. He said, no, 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 no. No, he's a decent man, right? What happened that day, I don't think we're ever going to see that again in America. I doubt if you ever see it like again in America. So what happened to those days when we can disagree, right? What happened to those days when we can politically be on different sides, but still enjoy Thanksgiving together? What happened to those days when we can vote differently and we don't talk about it? We move on with our lives. Everybody lives together in one piece. What happened to those days? All this problem of how we see each other politically started with Trump. People might not want to admit that. I won't say maybe he did not start it, but he brought it to the surface and he encouraged it and he continued until this day, make people feel like because they disagree with him, he uh, because they disagree with him, they cannot live in this country again. They need to get out. They need to go out somewhere else. Just because they're not on the same page. All this way of seeing each other as loved ones, as friends, even though we have this different religion and we have different culture, Trump pushed all those out the window when he came along. Trump brought out the worst in people, not their best. Not their best. Trump brought out the worst in people. The only election that Trump will admit to be conducted fairly is the election where he is announced as the winner. If the man did not win the election, he would deny that everything went as it should. He would lie continuously that it was rigged against him. That's just some of the things I think Trump got wrong. The issue is that many Americans today are suffering from Trumpnesia. Yep. Many Americans today are suffering for what I called Trumpnesia. This is a non medical diagnosis. This is what happens when people only remember the positive things that Trump did or happened during his administration. Trumpnesia can also be what happens when someone only cares about what Trump did right. Or should I say, they only care about what Trump gets right and they will fight vehemently if you attempt to say anything negative about Trump or point out Trump mistake to them. You cannot talk about anything Trump did wrong with somebody that is suffering from Trumpnesia. You cannot. Too many Americans have forgotten uh, the the almost daily chaos that we live through under this administration. Millions of Trumpnisia Americans do not want to think about many Americans who died of COVID due to Trump's failure. Don't even get me started about the childlike name calling, the disrespect of Ghost Star families, the arrogance towards the military, and the daily avalanche of untruthfulness that comes out from his mouth. There are some things that people that are suffering from Trumpnesia are just have forgotten. They don't want to talk about those things. The only thing that you can truly believe or rely on is what Trump is saying now. The only thing you can truly take home is what he's saying today. If the man wakes up today, right, wakes up this morning and finds out that he was wrong about what he said or did the day before, just yesterday, the man will do only one of two things. He's either going to double down on what he did wrong or the lie. He's either going to double down on it or he will never admit his wrong or mistake. The man believe that he will never do anything wrong. Anything wrong. But we all know this. When you don't admit you're wrong, you are unlikely to learn from it or ever grow from it. To the GOP, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with liking someone and criticizing them when necessary. There's nothing wrong with that. When a whole lot of you choose to have Trumpnesia, you are basically encouraging his bad behavior as well as his good acts. When you cannot bring yourself to talk about what the man gets wrong, you are simply encouraging him to continue the bad behaviors. I personally don't agree with the Democratic Party on many things. I think they tend to be too progressive in some ways or too far to the left. And disagree with Kamala Harris on some things. I disagree with some of the ideas that she had proposed. But it's time. It's time to make America see the best in one another again. It's time to make America love again. It's time to make America laugh again. It's time to stop seeing other Americans as the enemy just because their politics, race, or religion is different from yours. It's time to put an end to that. When it's all said and done, and we all ended up in our own echo chambers, and all we see across from us are neighbors that are considered to be enemies, we are only going to make it much, much easier for the actual enemy out there to get the best of us and to defeat us. Our neighbors are not our enemy because we are politically different. But don't mind me. What do I know? I'm just a guy who was born in a true third world country and knows exactly what freedom means and has been, or shall I say, been in or seen some of the worst of politics. But I'm glad to also have experienced and tasted the best that America has to offer. Thank you. That's our show for you today. Thank you for joining us again. And thank you for listening to What Do I Know? I'm your humble host, Orchestra. Please use our email address, what do I know at orchestrashow.com or WDIK at orchestrashow.com to send us your comments, question, or anything else you just feel like talking about. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your summer, and see you next time.